Hi, I'm Reverend Lee Antwella, and welcome to Clergy and Collars Getting Coffee. This is just a preview of things to come. I wanted to kind of set up and introduce the show. My hope is that in this better late than never, I hope, podcasting, vlogging, whatever we call it, world, that I can just get together, drink coffee, some in person, some via video, with colleagues in ministry and hear about ask them hard-hitting questions like, who are some of your favorite people in the Bible, and why, what are some of the big theological issues you are struggling with or have struggled with or are currently struggling with, and if you were a Care Bear, what color would you be and what symbol would be on your belly? So, hard-hitting questions like that. So I thought I would let you know what this is about. There's more to come. I don't know how regularly it will be coming. We'll see. But I thought I would answer some of those questions myself today and kind of introduce what it would be. Now, obviously, this is different. I am talking to people who might be viewing this, but mostly I'm having this conversation with myself, which I'm all for having conversations with yourself, as I tell my children all the time. Like, there's nobody you will spend more time with than you. So learn how to be your friend. And I do think it's a learning process, because I do think the world, particularly middle school, is excellent at sending us messages that we should not be loving ourselves. And so to hop right in then to a theological struggle or concept that I've been having for a long time, is I actually think that is one of the things that Jesus meant when we were given a new commandment, to love one another as Christ loved us. I think in part the reason it got worded like that, my theory, having no evidence of this whatsoever, but my decades-long conversations with God, is that Jesus came and went, yes, the greatest commandments are to love God first and love one another, love others as you love yourself. And then Jesus continued to do ministry and went, oh, wait a minute. These people are really bad at loving themselves. They are loving one another the way that they love themselves, and they suck at it. Wow. I think God was like, that's my impression of Jesus right there. And so when Jesus was leaving, Jesus was like, before I bounce, just so you know, I want you to love one another as I loved you. That's better, because like Jesus loved, as Barbara Lundblad said, in a boundary crossing way. Jesus loved all inclusive. It was all encompassing. Jesus met people where they were, and he didn't care about their background or any of the additives that we have to our names. It was about the person that they were right in front of them, and whatever it was that they needed or struggled with and needed to hear, a word they needed to hear, or a way that they needed to be healed, or a way that they needed to be loved. Jesus was like, I got you. And so Jesus tells us to do it that same way. So all that to say, I'm all for having conversations with yourselves, because we need to learn how to have a good conversation with ourselves. We spend more time with, as you than you do with anybody else in this world. So learn how to be a friend to yourself. And so I don't have a problem with that. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm embracing that. And so some of the things I wanted to know, or I previewed, I guess, was some who do you love in the Bible? Who are some of the characters or Bible stories that you really like tether to? And one of those people for me is Jonah. It's always been Jonah. I love that prophet Jonah. And I love Jonah for a variety of reasons. One reason I love Jonah is that he attempted to run away from God, which I find hilarious. The amount of chutzpah that one must have to go, nope, I don't want to do this. I'm going to run away. I don't know. I just love it. I love that whole scene. I probably read it very differently than other people. Like, I kind of read it with a, oh, just toss me over the board, just toss me over into the water. It's me. I'm the reason that the storm is happening. The people are like, no, no, we won't do that. Because, they're sailors and they know how treacherous the water is. And Jonah's like, it's fine. It's fine. It's because I'm trying to run from God. And God's like, you can't do that. I'm everywhere, in everything. Oh, here's a fish. Anyway, so I've just always loved that. And then plop, he gets plopped down. He does exactly, very begrudgingly, which I also appreciate about Jonah. He does exactly what God has asked him to do, begrudgingly. And then my favorite little part of Jonah, we always focus on the whale, Jonah being swallowed by the whale. But for me, it's the tree scene at the end of that text that I love so much, because Jonah is so mad that God saved all the people of Nineveh. He was like, that's why I didn't want to do any of this work, because I knew you were going to save these people anyway, blah, 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 blah. And God grows a tree and kills it. And Jonah's like, what? That was my shade. And it's great. It's a great little story, but I just love Jonah's temper tantrum, because we usually just talk about children having temper tantrums, but I think adults, as one who throws them, we can excel at our own temper tantrums. I mean, what is because I told you so any more than like stomping your foot down onto the ground and screaming until you get your way? That's the mother version of that. At least for me, that's my impression of it. So I love that Jonah throws a temper tantrum with God, and that God is like, this is the way it is, Jonah. I want to tell you, this is the way it is. Love you. I love all of that. And the self-righteousness that Jonah has. And so that leads me to one of the other theological issues that I always have been struggling. I've been struggling with for decades. This conversation is, 25 years long with God that I've been having about good and evil. I don't understand it. I keep asking God to explain it to me. You can attempt to explain it to me. I don't know that I will understand it any better. As far along as I've gotten, right, is God created everything, called it good. And then I think the stumbling happens in the attempt to be like God rather than to be loved by God. So if we want to say evil exists in the world, that's when it exists, when we attempt to have God's knowledge. And God was like, I never intended for you to have my knowledge. Please stop trying. Stop trying. Just go out and be. Which leads me to my third big, or I don't know, I'm not really counting, which leads me to the next big theological issue that I've been struggling with for decades, is the very concept of the verb to be. So in the Exodus text, God names God's self as I am, and tells Moses, I am sent you. So, and what I find interesting about that is the idea of, and of course Jesus has I am statements as well. What I found interesting about that is that I think the act of being is very difficult. And in several languages, certainly English, the conjugation of the verb to be is like an exception to the rule. It doesn't even make sense. So if people who are learning English as their second, third, fourth, eighth language, like, God bless you. I've spoken English my whole life and I still mess it up all the time, or I still don't understand how it gets I am, we are, he is. They're not even the same words, but they are the same word. And I think like nature does a great job of being. I think that's probably why so many of us go to nature to refuel, because it's like a lesson in just being. I also think that's why children are so helpful, particularly babies, because children, babies, their timelines are different than us. They're not like adding all this other stuff in. They're like, I'm hungry, tired, I need to be changed. I want affection. I would like some love. I want to laugh now. Whatever. Everything just is. And that presence, that level of presence, I think is something that I've been striving for my whole life. How do I do more of that? Because I think there's a wholeness and a healing in that process. So those are some of my current theological struggles and some character, or the person in the Bible that I really love. I also am interested in this conversation with my colleagues in Ministry of Learning. I mentioned the big hard-hitting question of the Care Bear. If you were a Care Bear, what color would you be and what emblem would be on your belly? And it doesn't come from nowhere. I mean, this question is thoroughly influenced by my growing up in the 1980s cartoons and the Care Bears hitting the scenes. But it's like one of those things I loved as a kid. I've appreciated more as I've grown older. I think it was Dave Chappelle who reminded me in one of his specials about like the Care Bears are great because it's just like pure love protruding out from, their bellies. But I've thought about that and I was like, well, that's how we talk about the Holy Spirit in church. Is how we talk about the Holy Spirit. This gift that we were left with, this light that we shine out into the world, and we're supposed to be doing those things. And so, there are so many interferences, and they're different for everybody. Some of us had immeasurable trauma to overcome. Some people didn't, but you weren't without hardships and struggles. We all have things that we deal with. We all have places that we're influenced more or less. Some of us are more influenced by the media than others and that kind of stuff. And so if we were to strip all that down and get to our baseline, if that's even possible, and I'm open to the idea that it isn't, but I feel like that's part of why I go to therapy, is to strip it down and see what's at the baseline and what's some of the core things that when I take away shame or stories or heartache or trauma or whatever. So we strip all of that down, and I think about my spiritual gifts. So you think about your spiritual gifts and your predominant characteristic. How would that be embodied on your belly, just like the Care Bears? So first of all, I would be a deep purple because no hidden secret, purple is my favorite color. And there's not anything more complex than that. I want to be a purple bear because purple is my favorite color. And that's it. And on my belly would be an anvil. And I know you're thinking, but Leah, Care Bears had things like hearts and sunshines and rainbows on your bellies. And you can have all those things on your belly. You can have the star and all that, the grumpy cloud bear, anything you want on your belly. But on my belly is an anvil. And I'm going to tell you why. It's because of my mentor and teacher, Faye Batchelder, who told me that she thought my spiritual gifts were mercy and wisdom when I was 17 and I was working at Geneva Hills Summer Camp. And so I was in high school. And of course, when you're in high school, you think you know everything. And I was like, Faye, I don't like these gifts that you have. You think that I have. I don't like them. Particularly mercy. It feels painful and I don't like it. And she was like, well, I don't think you're wrong, Lee. I think mercy can be painful. And I also think, that's not the way spiritual gifts work. She's right. Of course, I've learned that spiritual gifts are these gifts that cannot be returned. You don't get a refund for them. You don't get to trade them in for something you'd rather have. They're just you. They're yours. And you can use them or you cannot use them. But the world is better. And you will feel more whole if you actually use them and embrace them rather than being like Jonah and trying to run away from them. So you can throw all the tantrums you want, but they're yours. And so she said that spiritual gifts, she's broke it to me this way, that spiritual gifts are tools. And that the reason that mercy may seem like a painful tool to have is because unlike, like, say, a hammer or, I don't know, a screwdriver or a sword or whatever, any other tool you can think of, she said she really felt mercy was an anvil. So that's the tool it is. It is what metaphorically the other things hit themselves against, the other spiritual gifts hit themselves against in order to take shape. Because Lord knows we need generosity and forgiveness, which are embedded in mercy in order to get through our days. So we need people in our lives who will speak truth to power and love. Lord, help me. I have not always spoken truth to power and love. Sometimes I just speak what I think is truth. Might not be. And definitely have used my power in ways that I wasn't very loving. And I work on that. We are our works in progress, progress, not perfection. And so that's why the anvil would be my Care Bear belly emblem. And so we need people in our lives who will push us and pull us and shape us and guide us and walk alongside of us at the various times of our lives, whether it's those people who celebrate our joys with us or the people who sit with us when we just need a moment to grieve and they don't try to fix us. And people who are there for us when, we're angry or sad or lonely or whatever it will be, in order to find the way out of the muck, that empathy. And so that's why that would be my Care Bear belly. So obviously when we're having a conversation with people, we kind of let it go organically wherever it wants to go. And I'm very, very much looking forward to having this and asking even more questions of the people that I will invite to be here, best practices that they wish to share, something they maybe wanted to know before they entered ministry, maybe their favorite book or their least favorite book in the Bible. You're allowed to have favorites and least favorites always of these sort of things. Maybe activities or practices that they do daily, their current rituals or practices, like drinking a cup of coffee. It's definitely part of my daily routine and ritual. Something they do to refuel. For me, it's like going to art museums. Particularly, I love sculpture. I've always loved sculpture. I do not sculpt, but I have always appreciated sculpture. Also, I'm always curious as to what people are reading or watching or listening to. Those things shape us in ways that we can't maybe explain. So, for instance, one song right now that I'm listening to is If You Love Me by Lizzo. I'm kind of listening to that on loop. I'm loving it. The book Humankind is one that I would strongly recommend to people. I believe it was written by Rucker Bergman. I'm really bad at remembering authors and stuff and book titles. A movie that I would recommend right now to everyone is Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's fabulous. I don't care if you don't even like action movies. It's probably you're going to go, ugh, I don't want to watch that because I don't even like that kind of genre of movie. But watch the movie and then try to stick it in a genre. Good luck. And then a TV show. I watch a lot of TV shows, but one that I fell in love with is Abbott Elementary. I think it's hilarious. I have been a fan of hers, Quintus, for a while, watching her on little, her little comedy snippets for a long time. I really adore her, and she's the writer and creator of that show, one of them, and I just really love it. It's like, it is the show that is the reason I felt like that type of show is the reason I fell in love with television when I was growing up. It's just makes you feel good, makes you laugh, makes you think, makes you pause. And so I would recommend those things. So that's sort of what I hope that this will be, except you would be getting more of a conversation rather than someone just talking at you for, I don't know what it is, 20 minutes now. So that's where we are. This is a sneak peek at what this has the potential of being. Clergy in collars getting coffee. I cannot always guarantee that this clergy will be in a collar. I can guarantee that I will be a clergy and that I will be drinking coffee. So until the next episode, whenever that will be, take care. Peace.